All right, let's start back in the next clip. It's on algae. Now we're gonna move to the first group of plant-like thing, but it's not really the plant because this one doesn't have embryo. So let's talk about algae here. So the algae is like there's a big group of things that live mostly in the water, right? Everyone think about algae, it's mostly in the water. So they're mostly aquatic. They have photosynthetic pigments, so they can photosynthesize. But the key thing here is that they don't have the resting embryo phase. They just like go straight from like a cycle to like a mature plant. So that's very atypical. Like when you talk about other plants, so most of the plants have that phase where they have resting embryo, so they're not like, that's why they're not categorized in the plant kingdom. So we're gonna learn about three groups just like Power Ranger, like by the colors: the red, the brown, and the green algae. So we classify them mostly based on the color of the pigments that they have in the cells. So that's algae in a nutshell. So let's look at the first division of algae, the division Chlorophyta. You're gonna start learning Latin with me. All right, so just memorize all this. So choro mean green, and phyta mean plant. So green plant basically. So the characters that put the green plants together are they have chlorophyll A and B, and they either unicellular or multicellular. So unit mean one cell, right? One cell, or they have more than one cell, multicellular. And they can be either freshwater or terrestrial, and that's a really broad category. So we talk about things that just have embryo, can photosynthesize using chlorophyll A and B only, and then they can be either unicellular or multicellular, but and they can also be freshwater, terrestrial, or actually they can also be marine. I forget to mention, but mostly they're freshwater, but they can also be marine. So in this group, we want you to recognize two groups of green algae further. So if you green algae are really simple morphology, uh, that in a class called Chlorophyceae. So when you see Phyceae, that's the class. So in the Chlorophyceae, they have three groups, like large three groups. So you don't have to memorize the group name. It can be unicellular, just one cell, or it can be filamentous, just like filament, so just like thread like thing, or colony, it's like multiple cell living together. Or if your algae is have more if it have more complex morphology, just look like a tree, look like a plant now. If it start to look like an actual plant now, is in class Charophyceae. It sounds really similar, but notice Charophyceae. All right, so if you see the algae that look green, ask yourself which class it is belong to. And if it's really simple looking, like unicellular or filamentous type thing, or just in colonial, then it's Chorophyceae. But it starts to look really complex and look like a real plant, or you might mistake them for the actual plant, but they're not. So that's Charophyceae. All right, let's look at some example here. So this is the popular one. You might see this in the lab as well. So this is a genus Chlorella, just a unicellular group. And so this one cell. This is one organism. So let me change the color here. This is one organism. So that's it. One cell, just one cell, and just a cell with chloroplast. That's it. You're at the algae. You're done. That's your mature phase already. So you don't grow more than that. That's just you. That's genus Chlorella. And I'm gonna ask you to memorize what I put out here. So this is what you should remember. Like you see this is Chlorella, right? If something, the name that I put up here, and it's not being asked to memorize, and you don't have to memorize. Okay, so that's Chlorella. And the next one is probably less commonly seen. The Costerium. Costerium look like a ninja star or ninja sword, like a smaller one. It pew 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 pew. Right? This is one cell, and this is a nucleus here, and the rest is a cytoplasm. So it looked like a two cells, but actually just the one in the middle. That's nucleus, and the rest cytoplasm. That's the Clostridium and Cosmarium. They look pretty similar, but the one is Clostridium is much longer, Cosmarium is smaller. The next one is really characteristic. This one called Spirogyra. You probably learned that from Ajahn Charat one already in the cell um, chapter. So spiral mean what? Spiral. And gyra mean like not twisting but twirling, like doing this like gyrating. Like you probably heard the word gyrate before. So what is gyrating Spirogyra? It's basically the chloroplast, right? It's like spiral down. Yeah, this is really characteristic. You can see them right away in the cells. So that's when you see this is really characteristic of Spirogyra. And if you touch them in the water, it feel kind of slimy. It look like one of those like green, like hair-like thing in the water. But you touch them, it's really slimy feeling. So that's Spirogyra. And Spirogyra have really interesting sex. So we're gonna talk about algae sex now. So it takes us very long, right, before I get to the sex part. So the algae sex is really weird because it's sort of like just merging of the nucleus. So there's like two strand algae come together and like, you know what, let's become one. So like they touch each other and they move one nucleus to the others. So just like you and your partner, your boyfriend or girlfriend, it's like, oh, let's be boyfriend and girlfriend, and then they start to suck the soul of your life, and then you come out as empty shell people, and then they all take your stuff out here, and this nucleus is now like a part of two strand, a different strand become one. So that's just how we have sex. That not we, like they have sex. This is called conjugation. Con mean together. Juke is basic. Jugate is like to have sex, basically. Like to have sex together. It's like to fuse the nucleus together. So you can do it two ways. So like just like us, right? You can have like multiple sex position. I don't get into trouble saying this on the tape, but well, that's if that helps you remember. So like the first position is like you're lying side by side, and then you like suck the nucleus one way this way. So all the nucleus moving that way is formed kind of like a ladder type shape. This is called scalariform. So scala mean the ladder. Think of like your like ladder, like household ladder. Like you go up the roof using that ladder. So you see this like conjugation tube in between two strands, and like two strands next to each other. One is empty, the other one is full. And but if you don't want that, you can do like with your next door friend. You don't want to across a strand. You're just like, hey, you know what? We've been together for so long, like we're friends and all that. But well, I want to move on to the next step. So you can like talk to your friends, and then the nucleus right here being moved to this like conjugation tube here, like the small conjugation tubes between two cells, and they being migrated to the next cells over. So when you see the strand that do that, like become boyfriend or girlfriend with your own friends, you see the new nucleus like every other cells, because and you see this small bump that is used to be the tube that connect them. So this is called conjugation tube. So this way you see like every other cell having only nucleus, and then the other cells are empty because they conjugate with the next door neighbor. So that's two ways to have sex, and this way is called terminal or lateral conjugation. So you should be able to separate these two type of conjugation when they ask for them, right? And the other one that look kind of like that is called edogonium. So the OE here just like E, like edogonium, is really similar to Spirogyra, but you can say it's no like spiral, no gyrating chloroplast. And when you touch them in the water, it's kind of like more rough, like less slimy. You can also have like something more colonial, like multiple cells living together. This is really cute one. It's called Cinedesimus. They have this characteristic like horn type thing, like a little horn coming out, and this in the middle can be just two or more than two cells, but it live in colonies. And can have pedestrum, look like a little star, And this is Volvox. It's like a big balls of cells just like blobbing around. Like you won't see this much of this anymore because it requires a lot of clean water. So that's a bit a harder group to find. And you can also see like marine green algae, and this is a bit harder to see for us because you have to go to the sea, the ocean, and the travel is not really that convenient these days. So well, we're gonna see some example from this picture. So Calopa is, as in Thai called Sarai Pongangun. You probably seen them with salmon if you go eat salmon in Thailand these days. Like they will serve them with like raw salmon and like or with like papaya salad. This one that look a bit like a green little beets here. This is called Calopa. And the one called the Omaris, the nickname is Dead Man Fingers. Weird, right? So it's like look like a dead person fingers that come out from the sea and like with the tip being green. And the last one is acetabularia, which is like this whole thing is just one cell, and they have nucleus here, and then like the rest is just ornamentation. So this one is really tiny and is only found in the ocean. These are also the green algae in the Chlorophyta. Another one that pretty popular in marine system is called alba, or the nickname is sea lettuce. You can see that it looks like a lettuce in the ocean, and this one can cause a lot of problem from eutrophication. So eutrophication um, is the phenomena that the water has excess nutrient in the system. So we have so much nutrients. The algae are so happy that we're too happy. They like start producing so much more of the algae in the system. It's too much to the point that the algal bloom is covered the beach, and you see this in China. A couple years ago, this caused a problem in China, and it could happen with any algae, not just alba, but it just happened to be alba at the moment. Oops, sorry. And then you have some terrestrial group as well. When you walk into the forest, you see this like orange stuff on the bark, and actually, and when you check them out, it's a filamentous algae. It's called Trinipolia, and actually green algae. They just happen to produce way too much carotenoid, which is the orange substance you see in this cell. So they do have chlorophyll and they're actually green algae, but they in that condition they produce way too much carotenoid, and we actually use them for now to like extract carotenoid for carotenoid production. All the orange stuff that you use in your life come from carotenoid pigment, and some of which actually come from algae. So we're gonna move on to the second class in the green algae. It's called Chlorophyceae, which is the like we said, it's a green the green algae but have more complex morphology, just like like the actual plant. So you look at the like, it's kind of like real plant, right? There's a branch going on, and you can see that the branch pattern here is come from the same point. So this kind of branching pattern we call it whorl. WHORLED, whorl branching. Never spell it wrong because I gotta feel like you like yelling at me, calling me whore. Don't do that. It's whorl. So whorl meaning coming out from the same node. So like many branch from the same node. That's the character of this group. Many branch from one node. So we're gonna learn about only one genus here in this class. Is called Chara. In the lab, you might see another genus called Nitella. They're quite similar, but for now we just focus on this Chara thing. So when you see this in the water, it's called Chara. That's it. Just know it's Chara. You see them in a really clean water, like the rice paddy and stuff like that. And Chara have really different reproduction from the Spirogyra, right? Spirogyra have that like conjugation of nucleus. Chara is a bit more complicated. They actually have actual sex organ, and you should be able to recognize them when you see them. They're pretty visible with almost bare eyes. You can use a magnifying glass to see them. So you have male and female parts that are called globule and nucule. The globule is a male, so this male part look kind of round, and the female part is called nucle, have like really cylindrical shape with the spiral pattern here with a little bit of crown. So the female with the tiara, if you will. So that's how Kara actually reproduce, which you can see that the morphology of the sex organ is way more complicated than the other group of green algae, the Chlorophyta. So you should be able to separate them pretty readily in the field. So that's the green algae. On the next clip, we will talk about the brown algae and the red algae as well. All right, see you then.